This is the most spectacular car competition on Earth.
It's like the Fast and the Furious, but in real life.
Good day and welcome back to Spartan Entertainment and Electronics. I'm your host Ryan, and today we're diving back into Ryan Reviews. If you're a fan of American Ninja Warrior, The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, or Initial D, then this review is for you, as we are looking at Hyperdrive Season 1 from Netflix.
They've come from across the globe to chase a dream.
I will be honest and maybe spoil the rest of this review by being upfront and saying right off of the top that I loved this show, and I really hope they do a second season. The show is all about powerful, custom-built performance drifting machines from around the world, running through increasingly difficult obstacle courses that puts both car and driver on the outer limits of their abilities, and it shows, as the season progresses, that the event really wears on both.
This is so bad! I broke something!
You can see the cars show signs of fatigue as the events progress, and you can most definitely see the wear of the events on the drivers, more so on the lesser experienced drivers. The diversity of the car group was cool to see. However, one of my complaints with the show is that they did not really get into the specifications of the cars. I would have appreciated a little more in-depth look at the individual cars, their customizations, especially in the later stages of the competition once they got down to the final 6 or so. I would have liked a more detailed look at the cars themselves. I also appreciate that along with the diverse group of cars was an equally diverse group of drivers, which I think were well represented around the world. Given the male dominance of the racing world, it was awesome to see the number of female competitive drivers in this group. It was interesting to see the various short biographies on the drivers, especially as the group grew smaller in number and personal favorites started to stand out.
I am still learning every time I get behind the wheel of my car. I'm still actually pretty novice compared to some of the other drivers out there. But what I've noticed is that if I focus on just enjoying myself, I do better.
It was also appreciated that the biographies predominantly focused on what got the driver to that point, their ability to compete with their car and make it move sideways. One thing with the driver dynamics that stood out to me was drama between the drivers, or rather the absence of it. The focus was on the events, the drivers, and their skill to move their car sideways with precision. It did showcase how the racing community can be really empathetic and supportive of one another, especially as challenges created some impassable roadblocks. It was a real treat to see how training and experience made a difference more than the raw power of the cars. I was mostly unenthused with the hosts. Rutledge Wood and his knowledge of the cars and racing industry was the most positive experience I had with the hosts.
So let me ask you about her car. What will that do to her?
This is a converted street car, so her engine is prepared for the elements.
Lindsay is a fantastic interviewer and was underused in all capacities. She seemed to know more about the cars and racing than Michael Bisping anyway. I understand why Bisping was there. He is a competitor and was there to talk about the mentality of the drivers, but I think there are better suited options for that role than a UFC fighter in a car show. Why not reach out to some people involved in the car and racing industries? There would have had to have been at least one rally driver, NASCAR, F1, or other major racing series competitor that would have been more directly able to talk about the effects of having a tight racing schedule on the mind and body, and be interested in hosting an event like this.
I think now the race is starting to settle into its rhythm. The first 2 hours are normally the most intense because the cars are obviously close together. Everybody's trying to race each other for track position. But now the cars are starting to split up. Strategy will become a bit more of an important factor.
I realize this is just my opinion, but I feel strongly about it nonetheless that Bisping was the wrong choice. I feel almost as equally as strongly about sportscaster Mike Hill. Although he did a fine job, were they not able to get an announcer from the automotive or racing industry? A few options that would immediately come to my mind: Top Gear hosts, Car and Driver TV hosts. I think I can think of a couple other internet automotive personalities that I would have preferred.
So they've made a four-wheel version of the six-wheel version of the four-wheel car they already had.
But if you look closely, it's got side pipes. Oh, yes!
And all of a sudden, ladies and gentlemen, Richard Hammond has become uncomfortable in his trousers.
To be clear, I think the hosts they went with did a fine job and kept it enjoyable. However, I believe it would have brought a higher level of authenticity to the show if they had have used personalities from the automotive industry. During one of the biographies, I was surprised to see that Charlize Theron is an executive producer on the series. It's not really relevant to the series, but a neat fact nonetheless. I wouldn't have otherwise noticed this, as I don't typically watch the net credits because, well, It's Netflix. Next episode in 5 seconds.
This is really badass.
It was exciting to watch the difficulty of the obstacles increase as the events progressed. Slight increases during the qualifier rounds, more significant increases throughout the knockouts, culminating in a fine-tuning of the difficulty for the finale. It was also curious to see how the drivers handled the adversity with mechanical failures along the way, and how they would adapt and carry on if they were able to. Watching the DNF title pop up was heartbreaking, as you could see the emotional effect that being unable to finish was having on not only the racers, but their supporters.
It looks like his car's gonna blow up.
It was good to see the ones that were hit with the DNF rebound and acknowledge that this is part of racing and tomorrow is another day. As far as the camera work goes, the visionary camera work was amazing, and I hope they keep it going for season 2, if it happens. The usage of slow motion at appropriate moments was moving. Hearing a car ping off that red line and watch the tires break loose off the asphalt and start spinning is just such a wild view and an always enjoyable moment. Watching some of the cars go sideways through obstacles or splash through water obstacles also always exhilarating and done very tastefully. During some of the later races, there was a little more cutting away from the race to go see the hosts, pits, or gallery than I would have liked. I wanted to see the final 6 cars run flat out in the final race entirely. It's not as though it was a bad edit, I just would have liked more of the raw racing footage of those, especially of that final race. Outside of the final race, I really have no complaints, however, about the editing or cutting back and forth between the hosts, the pits, and the gallery and the racing. Season 1 of Hyperdrive is 10 episodes of approximately 50 minutes per episode. As there are no commercials on Netflix, I would like to see them start to push these times closer to a full 60 minutes and get away from that cable TV mentality. That time has to be left in a 1-hour program for commercials on cable TV, but as this is the streaming age and cable television is slowly dying out, let's get away from that mentality. Add an extra 10 minutes of content to each episode. I would do a lot for some of these programs. Hyperdrive specifically is one program I think they could do a lot with those extra 5 to 15 minutes, like add some in-depth looks at their cars and their specs. Overall, though, the series was an appropriate length, having the 10 episodes consisting of 4 qualifying rounds, 4 knockout rounds, one of the knockout rounds including a wildcard comeback slot, a single semi-final episode, and then the finale. The pacing was excellent and was not found to be slow or dragging at any point. They maybe could have added a quarterfinal event and gone into the finale with 4 racers instead of 6, but I like what they've done and wouldn't recommend changing it at all. As I said in the beginning, I really enjoyed this show, and I am very hopeful they do a second season. I give it a 9 out of 10. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And while you're there, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Let's discuss. What did you think of this series? Are you wanting a second season? What other movies or series do you think I should review? Let me know in the comments.